He said, "You're so pretty to be a dark girl. Well, why can't I just be pretty?
Just be pretty, right?
Why can't I just be pretty and not because I was dark? You know what
Right.
I'm saying?" And I took that, but I took it as a compliment because I wasn't getting, compliments, kids.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Inspiring Beauty and Believers. My name is Song, and today we are going to continue our talk about the importance of self-care to heal from parental abandonment or toxic relationships, whatever it is that you need healing from. So today my guest is Angie, and she is going to be talking to us about the importance of self-care. Tell me about your childhood.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Currently, I'm a social worker and I help people mainly through DCS, helping families and helping children being reunited with their families. Kind of like it kind of relate to my own personal childhood, seeing disadvantaged children, seeing children that were abused, and it was nothing that I could do about it because I was a child and in the era that I grew up in. Um, we would tell parents or whatever, but it would be more the system wasn't as involved. I felt like the system wasn't as involved um, to help protect those children. And so even with the abandonment issues, as some have said about how it relates to self-care and how I feel like it relates to self-care as I reflect on my own childhood is that when I was growing up, we didn't pay attention as to how we felt as much, and it wasn't paid attention like the children were in my era. Majority of the time was told to, hey, you do as I do, not as I do. Children are to be quiet and not to express their feelings, um, regardless of how they were feeling. Some parents, not all parents, but some parents, because they're coming out that era of the 60s and the 70s, and later even before that, where children really didn't have much of a voice. And that's the reason why it's so important to go back and dig in those roots and find out, why the self-care, why women didn't do it, not just women, but men, why they didn't look at those essential parts of their life that they need to take care of in order to be a more nurturing parent, to be a better team player, all these areas that affect our lives on a daily, and we don't look at that. And especially as women, we definitely don't look at that. We always put others in before us, our children, our husband, our ministries, our friendship, our jobs, and we forget about ourselves and how that affected me as a child. As I see my childhood, the way I grew up, it wasn't it wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. We all have our issues in our families, but what it taught me is that I really had to depend on myself and I had to look from within to find those good qualities about myself when others wasn't telling me. And that's one positive thing I can say about my childhood. I know my dad, we didn't even have a good relationship, but one thing he told me, he said, if you don't think it for yourself, then don't expect everybody else to think it for you or to be there for you to go through your daily life. So I just took that and I kind of like ran with it. And he said, you have to tell yourself that you're beautiful. You have to tell yourself that you're worthy. Um, because if you wait literally for a man, and he taught me about that, he said, waiting literally for a man or a gentleman to come tell you that or whatever, it may not ever happen. And then what do you have to pay for those things, in order for them to tell you that? What price are you paying? Are you paying with your life, your body, your spiritual walk, whatever it may be? And so with that, as I gotten older, I learned to evaluate myself. What am I worthy of? Um, and how good, because I did have what do you call that, a low self-esteem. I grew up in the era where beauty was everything. If you wasn't slim in the waist, if you didn't have boobs, a body figure, young men wouldn't look at you, or you wasn't worth anything. Even in society, you wasn't worth anything. So,
if you didn't have certain texture hair,
certain texture hair was the number one thing. If your hair wasn't past your at least hanging on your shoulders or touching your shoulders, you weren't anything, and that was it. And yeah, I had little curly hair, uh, or whatever from my hair had to be cut off or whatever from a medical condition or medicine anyway that broke it off real bad. So I had to start back over in the pivotal times of my life, like in sixth grade and fifth grade, when you start hitting that puberty age, and it's important how you look and what you wear, things like that. And I was like, oh, I got to start all back over. My hair is not together, and things like that. And then we tried. My dad wouldn't let me get certain things like perms or anything like that. So here I am walking around with a little curly afro. And everything, and it just wasn't it to me. It just wasn't cute because of what society had put on us. If you're dark skinned, you're not beautiful. And if you have short hair, you're not beautiful. If you're not blooming and have a full body by the time you're 14, 14, 15 years old, you're not beautiful. And you take all those things, even though people used to say, oh, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Bull crap. It does. So with that being said, I really had to tap into myself, and it really only took my dad to tell me that. And it was this young man, I'm not gonna give his name out, but he lived on our street. He was an older gentleman, and I used to walk around with a real mean frown on my face, because I was bullied and just picked on or whatever. I was a little skinny, scrawny thing. And he told me one day, he said, smile, you always frowning like that. He said, what's going to make you smile? And he was a nice looking gentleman or whatever. And I just looked at him, and every time I would just walk by his house when I was feeling down or whatever, I walk by his house just to go to the store. My excuse was to go to the store, even if I have a dime, a nickel, a quarter or whatever, just for him to smile at me and to say, you're beautiful. And then one thing I didn't get or whatever, he said this one time to me, and now I can understand what he's saying. You can kind of look at it as a negative condensation of how society view darker complexion women, or just black women, period. He said, and looked like, I think he was like mulatto or whatever. He was mixed with something or whatever. And he said, you're so pretty to be a dark girl. Well, why can't I just be pretty?
Just be pretty, right.
Why can't I just be pretty and not because I was dark? You know what I'm saying? And I took that, but I took it as a compliment because I wasn't getting, compliments. Kids at school was mean. So just that, that's a part that I looked at to take that now as I got older. I started to do like affirmations even in high school. You are pretty, you are beautiful, and I began to pick little things out about myself, what I was beautiful, for all the negative things. I didn't, besides the bullying and things like that. As far as the abandonment go, I feel like there were some things in my life that my dad, I was expecting from him, and I didn't get that from him. Not meeting him until I was, I think, like I knew of him and everything, but not him coming into our lives or back into our lives until I was 7 years old. Being raised by a single mother and knowing that my mom was married and having a dad somewhere out there, and then he comes into our lives, and it was just, I was expecting him to do a lot more, where my uncle took that place in my life and helped my mom out tremendously. And so I looked at him as a father figure. And I knew he had kids or whatever, but he gave that attention to me and my brothers that we needed. And for my father, for him to live in the house with us, it was like he didn't. And so that's where, like, the things that I would feel more comfortable going to my uncle who lived outside of our house, and to ask him things, and to talk to him. I can tell him anything. compared to, going to my dad. And it wasn't just for me, it was for my brothers
Right.
as well. They were more comfortable. We was more comfortable saying, hey, we have something going on at school and my mom really don't have the money. Can you help her out? Don't tell her, but, can you help us out? So all those things that I was expecting from the male figure in my life that's supposed to be my protector, my not my savior like God, because
Right.
there's no comparison. But to be that for us, he wasn't.
Right.
So all that nurturing or whatever I saw from, and thank God I didn't go outside of that, because my uncle was a very tremendous, intricate part of my life where I didn't have to run out to young men and seek that attention or whatever and that affection from them. When I was smaller, yes, I talked about the young man that told me I was beautiful, to be a black girl. I mean, yes, my uncle told me and, things like that, but that just wasn't the same as hearing it from
an outside
society and an outside person.
Mm-hmm.
So, but even with him, like he gave me those things that I needed to nurture and to be a young woman. Some of them was positive and some of them was negative. I can tell you some of the things that the negative wise, how that affected me and had me to look at how men would treat a woman, and just by them. But I took that and I turned it into a positive. All those ill treatments that I seen, both my dad and my uncles, other male parties in my life, how they treated women, it made me a better woman, and it made me easier, knowing what I want in a partner or a husband, compared to just settling for anything, settling for anyone that comes and tells me, oh, you're cute and I can buy you a diamond ring. And I'm just like, no, I can buy my own diamond ring, even at 20,
yes,
21
girl.
years old. I don't need your money or whatever. I don't need you to buy me a ring because I have rings. I don't need you to, buy me a car because I already bought my car, and I don't need you to pay my bills because I don't want you holding anything over my head.
Right.
And I learned it. I'm glad I did learn that. So you can take your self-care and some of the positive things from self-care that I'm learning now. I was already exhibiting those things because I took those negative aspects that I was dealing with, my dad being physically in the home, but not physically there.
Right.
And if you can understand that, it was more of someone being just living in your house and you just passing by every day without, speaking or having any relationship, not having any, not even communication, period.
Mm-hmm.
Too scared to ask him to say, hey, Dad, a dance is coming up and a boy want to come out, he wants to date me, all the negative that I got, from that, or that I was too afraid. Now, what if I would have went out there and just did anything?
Right.
That would have been detrimental.
And then you came home pregnant, then he didn't
exactly. And I already got that too. If you ever come home pregnant, you're not going to be in my house, this, that, and the other. Well, talk to me about what men do. My uncle shouldn't be talking to me about that. You're in my life now. Right. So just having that abandonment portion of not being, I felt like I was not loved. I felt like there was just, I'm the only girl. And previously, my dad had another, had been married before, because he had some years on my mom, and he had a daughter that perished in a house fire. Mm-hmm. His daughter perished in a house fire at a certain age, and his baby sister perished in the house fire at the same age. Oh, wow. So that was definitely a trigger, for him. He was my protector. It was like he stifled me in a way, though, because he wouldn't let me do anything. And he felt like women should be in the house,
but not seen.
You're cute, you're beautiful, you're natural. I like the way you are. He didn't want no perms in my head. He didn't want my mom to press my hair. He didn't want me to wear pants, anything like that. A man that was not religious at all did not want me to wear pants.
And, I never understood the pants thing. I guess as men, because men are supposed to wear pants, but I never understood, like, listen.
Yeah, and then the era that he grew up in, you think my dad was born in 1930, which literally almost was, 100 years ago, but it's not literally, technically, it's like 90 years ago almost, but he was born in 1931 or whatever, and he still has some years in years of my mom. She's born in mid 40s, in the mid 40s, and so he had that what we call old folkish era in a sense about himself, but just that abandonment. I take care of the home. I go out and I win the bread. You guys have a roof over your head. You have clothes on your back. You have food on the table, and that was his motto. And I'm just looking at him. I need more than that. My mom need more than that. My brothers need more than that. We're growing up in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
We need more than just those basic three things that society or people say, well, that's all you need to live. No, we need to know how to take care of our money. We need to know, our social, who we need to social with, or good social habits. It's so many areas of self-care that we needed to key in upon, or even to talk about and discuss that with, to have that discussion with our parents. To It's like you have a lot of people that are just, I wouldn't say messed up, but kind of like lost and trying to find their way when they're 25 and 30 years old, when you should know, like, hey, one day I'm going to leave this earth, and one day I need insurance, life insurance. I need to be able to put money away for a rainy day. Just from finances, it's just a whole plethora of things that um, you can relate back to your childhood, and I can relate back to the abandonment that I felt um, from that situation. And at a time, we were, uh, at the end, I want to say at the end, mid-teens or my late teens after high school, whatever, it was now it was a physical abandonment. I was like, I never could understand that. Why would a person, I wouldn't just say men, because women do it too, why do they choose to leave um, their families for the world? Right. And when I say that, for the world, it can be from drugs to another person, to I wouldn't say just drugs, but substance abuse, to your career, and things like that. And we can't have it all. That's one thing I've learned in all the areas that when I look back on self-care, you can't even fulfill your self-care needs, all your self-care needs in one day. Right. It's just impossible. You're not Superwoman, you're not God. So you cannot fulfill that. But in time, over the week, you should be tapping in on every area of self-care. And I have, because I do social work.
Yes, we're gonna get into the self-care parts. This stuff is good.
Because I do. And if I was your true friend, if you was my true friend, vice versa, whatever I tell you, and I was like, you know what, that wasn't right. Mm-hmm. I may say it and trying to say it in love, but that wasn't right. And maybe you need to try to, take some time, and don't take too much time, but take some time to go figure that out or whatever, and then go to that person and hash it out. Because what we don't want, as we inspire people over our life, time, we do not want to hinder someone's ability to grow. And I'm talking about in all areas, from the physical.